Cyril Ramaphosa has been sworn in for a second term in office as the president of South Africa. Ramaphosa, who is a leader of the African National Congress, was able to secure a fresh mandate after last Friday's agreement with a number of political parties to form a government of national unity. South African Times columnist Kundai Darlington Vambe joins us now to discuss President Ramaphosa's inauguration for second term, the challenges before him, and also to try to set an agenda for his second term. Good afternoon, Kundai. Always great to have you here on Arise.
Good afternoon, Vambe. Thank you for having me.
All right, Kundai, let's get straight into it. Of course, following the inauguration, we know that what everybody is waiting for now is the cabinet. And looking at the news cycle in South Africa this morning, there seems to have been a lot of discussion about the agreement, the terms and conditions of this government of national unity. As last night there was an interview conducted with Helen Zille of the Democratic Alliance that seemed to imply that the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, will not be able to make any cabinet appointments without the consent of the Democratic Alliance. Have you been through the agreement for the GNU, and what's your take on this?
Very interesting, Vambe. Indeed, yesterday there was an interview with Helen Zille. I think the bone of contention started after it was made public that the PA, Patriotic Alliance, had joined the government of national unity. Helen Zille sought to clarify that point yesterday by talking about provision 28 of the agreement, stipulating that the ANC is not in a position to decide who gets into the GNU without the consent of the other two parties, the founding members, the IFP and the DA. So indeed, it begs the question that does the ANC actually wield power in this GNU, or is it a GNU, or it's an ANC-DA coalition like it has been accused to be? So she sort of alluded to the point that Fikile Mbalula and the ANC did not read the fine print of the agreement. And when one reads the agreement, she is correct to a large extent.
Very good, Kundai. Now, what major cues did you observe in President Ramaphosa's inaugural speech, and how relevant are they to the electorate's present needs, you think?
He has emphasized the issue of unity and allowing the country to move forward, and he has recommitted to his oath of office. But this comes in a very difficult period against the backdrop of the ANC having lost a lot of power. If you recall, the Southern African Times carried an opinion piece by the president just after the election, where he highlighted his goals for the extension of his administration. Among these goals, it includes eradication of poverty and achieving inequality, achieving the eradication of inequality within the South African society. Now, when you look at what he has set as his agenda, that includes the National Health Insurance Bill, which is very pivotal to him achieving equality as far as the health sector is concerned. It also comes across as one bill that is challenged significantly by the DA. So in as much as the president knows what has to be done, the question that comes in now when he has minimum political capital is to what extent is he going to achieve what he has sought out to achieve?
Now, and I'm glad you make that point because looking at the state of affairs, of course, it's only early days. Today is technically just day one of his presidency. How likely do you think that any governance is actually going to occur under this government of national unity? Because it looks like politics is going to dominate. And secondly, what do you think is the longevity of this GNU? I know I saw some tweets earlier from Jacob Zuma's daughter alluding to the fact that she doesn't think that this GNU will last up to 1 year.
It is too early to tell, as you have said. But when you look at it as we speak right now, when I listened to the DA leader John, he spoke this morning when he was interviewed at the venue at Union Buildings. Very interesting. You can hear some contradictions. A couple of days ago, Helen Zille clearly stated that the DA will not be voting for the removal of Ramaphosa regarding Phala Phala. So they're not going to participate in a motion of no confidence against the president. That's what she said. But when you listen to John this morning, he almost leaves it to say, it sounds like plausible deniability to say, with regards to Phala Phala, we will let the law take its course. That is almost contradictory and very vague when we put it against what Helen Zille said a couple of days ago. So it's exhibiting a lot of cracks within the agreement, within the government of national unity. There's a lot of inconsistencies and contradictions.
Indeed, Kundai. Now, on the other side, what are South Africans themselves saying about this coalition government? Do they have confidence in it amid the current socio-economic challenges, you think?
The honest truth, the common South African does not really have a choice. They have to accept and give the government of national unity a chance. They have to put their faith in their leaders at this stage and hoping that the leaders will achieve what they have set out to achieve, key among everything, an equal society in South Africa. There's been an outcry about the economic inequalities. It is the hope of many South Africans that their desires and their wishes will be achieved during the reign of this administration.
All right, I'd like to talk a little bit about the opposition, specifically the MK, who of course notably absent today. And, what is the impact that this has on South Africans? Because, I see there's a group of people who feel a degree of disappointment that they voted for MK, but MK is not showing up to Parliament, and now they haven't shown up to inauguration. And they feel, well, we gave you our vote. Why are you not representing us? There's that school of thought. Then there's the other school of thought that's saying, well, you know what, dissent is the order of the day. It's interesting, I spoke to somebody this morning who was saying, we remember what happened in the riots in 2021. We don't want any more protests. Where does the sentiment lie with regards to opposition and with regards to, black people who are largely expressing that they feel that the country has been sold out back to, some sort of neo-apartheid era?
The real issue here is with the kind of setup, the kind of government that is actually in place as we speak. It was initially supposed to be a government of national unity. But as we said at the beginning of this conversation, the mere fact that the DA has clearly said that it rests with the founding members, it does not come across as an actual government of national unity. It's sounding more like a coalition, a closed-door coalition. We don't seem to have much room for the inclusion of other parties. Now, it begs the question, like you're asking, Wimbai, to what extent does it actually serve the needs of the people? To what extent does it represent what the South Africans voted for? Look, millions of people went to the ballot, went to the queues to vote. But it all came down to the decision of a few people. What does that say about South African democracy? So I think this is where the outcry is coming from the people to say they're not being heard, they're not being listened to, because it came down to almost sounding like the black people have been marginalized again, like they have been all along. The very exclusion, or rather the omission of the MK and the EFF within this mix of the government of national unity, or rather a coalition, is almost confirming the idea that black people have been marginalized, because historically the Democratic Alliance has been viewed as a white party, for the lack of a better word, with very few black people involved in its structures. So that is, I hope I answer your question, Wimbai.
Yeah, you did. Politically correct, but you did.
Indeed, coming on the heels of the issue of marginalization here, Kundai, when you take a hard look at this, do you think, beyond the realm of politics, do you think South Africa's unity is under any threat as we speak?
I do not think South African unity is under threat, as long as the current administration addresses the core issues. And one of the core issues, fundamental issues, is the issue of inequality. Like many African countries, South Africa does not have a significant middle class. And the absence of a middle class points towards a high degree of inequality. So it's coming across as if we want to achieve political inequality before we achieve economic inequality, economic equality. So we want to achieve political equality to say, okay, it doesn't matter our historical backgrounds, we are politically equal, before we actually become economically equal, before the native people or the majority, the black people, are allowed to play a very significant role in the economy through the creation of a significant and a meaningful middle class. So as long as the government strives towards creating equality and creating a meaningful middle class, I think South Africans will remain united. The unity is not threatened.
Right. Now, opposition leader Mmusi Maimane said something quite profound this morning, and he said he felt that today marked the end of liberation politics and marked the beginning of governance politics. What's your take on this statement? Do you agree with him?
I would like to believe Mmusi Maimane is coming from a school of thought that believes that the vote of the people in this election did not really matter because it only came down to the decision of a few people, regardless of the outcome of the election. Here we are. We have the Democratic Alliance with approximately 20%. Here we are. We've got the ANC with approximately 40%. But when you look at the Government of National Unity Agreement and what Helen Zille just said yesterday, it's almost making irrelevant the fact that South Africans voted vehemently for a predominantly black party. We are equal right now. So it is, from that school of thought, governance politics and almost the end of liberation politics, as Mmusi Maimane would like to put it.
Indeed, Kundai, still talking about the decision of a few people, isn't that a pointer to the longevity of this GNU, as it were, this coalition?
If it's not handled well, this coalition will achieve two things. It's either going to be just a cool-off period, waiting for the next election, and no significant changes made for the betterment of the people of South Africa, or there's going to be a lot of push and pull, which you have already witnessed between Fikile Mbalula and Helen Zille. A couple of blows have been exchanged, verbal blows between the two already, and that is a bit worrisome. And you also listen to the contradictions between Helen Zille and John with regards to Phala. So we're in for a very long run as far as this Government of National Unity is concerned, and its very longevity is under threat. It might not live long unless there is consistency and clarity, unless the agreement is fully understood and accepted by all. At this stage, I do not think that it's fully understood by both parties, both significant parties, in the same way.
Right. Now, let's look at economics. Throughout this negotiation period after the elections, there was a talk about what will be good for the markets, what will investors like. And, there was a lot of the media were pitting an ANC-DA alliance as the alliance that would, take South Africa forward and, look good for investors and for markets. I believe the Rand has even strengthened, with regards to the exchange rate to the US dollar. Is this going to be a good government of national unity for the South African economy if it's well managed? If
it is well managed, yes, it will be good. But it's too early to really say the rand will continue to track towards a positive path in response to the government of national unity, you're still going to have policy standoff. You're still going to have disagreements regarding economies, regarding SOEs, regarding the Ministry of Finance, regarding who leads the Ministry of Finance, regarding who the permanent secretary, regarding who runs what. All these things might deter and might slow down decisions, and these decisions will ultimately impact investor confidence and derail the rand. So it is too early in buy.
Indeed. Kundai, Darlington, Vambe, South African's Times columnist, I would like to thank you for your thoughts on those issues. Always a pleasure to have you.